get out without a doubt.
No, you already drank all the water. You already. Go and lay down and go to sleep, please. Exactly, Amor. Lay down and go to sleep, please. Peace and welcome to Super Heru Radio. I am your host, Aseer the Duke of Tears. You're now tuned in live again. Super Heru Radio, the world's most dangerous conscious radio show. I am your host, Aseer the Duke of Tears, with the co-host, Selena, the Empress of 10,000 Years, this greater Super Heru family, the human families of the planet Earth, under the auspices of all of the ancestors. We want to say peace, love, and light. Thank you guys for tuning in, holding us down. So as we know, a lot of stuff always going on as usual. A lot of the stuff, thank you for those people who sent in words of acknowledgement based upon the present situation that's going on in Syria and stuff. For anybody that's been listening to say Super Heru Radio, we've been talking about this for about 5 years now, and now that it's come to pass, a lot of people are now starting to see the writing on the wall concerning that. You know what I'm saying? Also dealing with the fact that many people who are not even involved in the conflict are being affected by the conflict. And specifically, this thing just didn't come out of nowhere. We've been talking about the origin of the conflicts in the Middle East and how a lot of those things came to pass for a very long time. But for those people that may just be listening to Super Heru Radio for the first time, or just coming in and not really sure the context of what we're building on, we should be specific and add on in a manner that will help make more sense of it. Now, if anybody's been paying attention to world politics for the past 60 plus years, you will see that a lot of things have been coming to pass that have been in the works for a long time. People be talking about the one world government and Illuminati and all this other crap that has nothing to do with the absolute reason as to how and why these things have gotten into the position or have gotten so drastically out of control. And that's because the method to control is through chaos. So just as important as chaos is to order, order needs chaos to rise out of. So the perpetual form of destabilization that has become the pattern of the United States has been basically going on since World War I. World War I was really the only war that they actually really declared, and before that, the only war they declared was the so-called, well, they couldn't even really declare the Revolutionary War because they technically weren't a country. The Independence Hall was built in, I believe it was 1763. So by the time that we was actually solidifying how our government or how the original government of the United States and stuff like that was going to found itself, the so-called colony people was just basically realizing or trying to come to grips with the fact that they had no way out of their perpetual slavery. So if we jump ahead a little bit, we have to go around the time of the end of World War. Yeah, I guess it would be World War I, because we're reaching the decline of the so-called Turkish Empire or the Ottoman Empire, which then was the old Moorish Empire, which was consolidated as an empire from time immemorial, but when the Maghreb started to fall, the Ottomans or the Osmanli Beys took over, and they basically held down all of Europe. Being that Turkey basically skirts like 3 continents, this was them being able to be in Europe, Africa, and Asia. And so in the process of creating that universal bond, they basically stepped up and picked up the slack. So in history books, they refer to the Ottoman Empire as the old man of the West, right? And the great old man of the West was the one that basically kept all of them under jurisdiction. The British, everybody in Europe really couldn't do nothing while the Turks was rocking. So what they decided to do was go into what they call the Bedouin tribes, or what they also refer to as the desert Arabs, who a lot of them were descendant from Moors from the Maghreb, as well as those soldiers that went up into Andalus and all of that, and after the 1400s were expelled and went further down into the kingdom of Songhai. The kingdom of Songhai was absorbed by those displaced Moors that were coming out of Granada and didn't want to come back over here to the Maghreb. And then that whole thing was reordered into the kingdom of Morocco by the 1700s under Moulay Suleiman, as well as Moulay Ismail, as well as Moulay Suleiman. These were all, again, Moroccan Moors who had affinities and connections with the so-called Arabs and chose to stay on that side of the continent. And so this now has perpetuated the idea that they could use the so-called wild Arab tribes as a means to go break down the so-called Turks, and then promise the Arab tribes the ability to set up pseudo-countries, right, or states that, in a sense, would be autonomous amongst themselves, even though most of the railroads and stuff they would be getting would be coming from the British. Out of all of them, these so-called Bedouin Arabs, a.k.a. Moors, the ones that they dealt with or wanted to deal with the most were the House of Saud, because they were keepers of the holy city of Mecca, so everybody got to deal with them. Also, they were directly connected to those of us over here through the Moabite line, because the House of Saud claimed its descendancy from Ruth. So they're saying that they're Moabites. So in that, the Moabite, which is the Al-Moroccan Empire, with a conglomeration of the Amorites, the Hittites, and Jebusites, and those ancient peoples from over there who left from over here in ancient times, went over to the so-called old world continents, and they wanted to come back over here, but they consolidated that under the Moabite term. So the House of Saud was definitely there. Also, they was dealing with the British was dealing with Egypt. Those Moors from Cairo. And after them, the only other ones they were dealing with was the ones that eventually became Iraqis. They couldn't deal with the Persians because the Persians, or the so-called Iranians, or those type of Moors or whatever, they was the Europeans that was trying to deal with them was the Russians and all of that. So out of these 3 groups under the British, under Faisal, with the help of a guy named T.E. Lawrence, who they also known as Lawrence of Arabia, he is the one who created the term Arab in 1914. And as that term Arab was coined, this is what they began to give these people to make them feel that they were, in a sense, separate, because up until then, they were just another so-called tribal race under the jurisdiction of the House of Saud or the original houses of Kurd and so forth and so on. Now, back then, Syria was known as Al-Sham, right? So Al-Sham at the time was really like an intermediate state because you had a lot of different tribal relations that were passing back and forth based upon whatever colonial people or whoever was trying to hold it down. That place didn't become Syria. It became Syria under a French mandate. The French mandated that when they was trying to get out and lick their wounds from what happened after the Battle of Algiers. So Syria, prior to the Battle of Algiers. So Syria itself was really a conglomerate country that came out that really that area of Al-Sham was under the jurisdiction of the Nabateans, the people who built Petra and these types of places. These people are directly descendant in terms of the Grail line of the birth of Isa and all that. These people are direct descendant in that line, being that John the Baptist was a Nabatean or a Sabbatian noble. So by the time of the ascendancy of the House of Saud as the premier of the so-called Arab Emirates, they had already set things in motion by the 20s, such as the creation of the Sultanate in 1926, which then led to the founding of the Treaty of Jeddah, which then led to the next year in 27, which then led to the conveyance by the Sultan of the House of Saud acknowledging the Moors over here in 1928. The Prophet, being all wise, putting the entire Sultanate and the title of nobility and the ancient empire, all of that, and putting it into the training academy that we have today called the Moorally Temple of America. That has an arm called the Divine and National Movement that acts as the vehicle to get back to our original country, the Societas Republicae Americanos Estados, as well as the original Moroccan Empire of the lands of Al-Maghreb, Al-Aqsam, Al-Sheikh-Mexum, Al-Amazon. So all that is translated out later after 1914, after T.E. Lawrence and them, with the help of the British, take over Egypt and then break down the so-called Turkish Empire. They get a Greek Cypriot to sit on the throne of the Sultanate, and then basically gets him to abolish the Sultanate, abolish the fez as the national headdress. Therefore, the only people rocking that were the Moors from the kingdom or the region of the Maghreb, meaning the west, with the northwest, or the northwest southeast. Maghreb, as we know, is now known as America. So after World War II, now 45, this is all as a result of what the Prophet and what was going down between the late 20s. So really, they have been rocking hard or been trying to really be in control really since 1865, let's say, to 1945. That's the height of the Western Empire, because that's also the rise and fall of the Victorian era, and we see the rise and demise of the British system as it is now absorbed into the new American United States system. And then we see the decline of all of that then by 1933. So, like I said, let's say, to be generous, let's say 1865 to 1933, or really 1929, because their luck and misfortune started to fall right after the Sultan of the House of Saud basically put out that the Sultanate would be reestablished, and that meant then that the Islamic monarchy, which then trumps the European monarchy, both publicly and privately, both esoterically and exoterically. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just how it is. So that then put us back in a position for when we would then acquire the title of nobility, we then would fall directly under this eternal protection that is now really qualified for us as nationals, as Moorish American nationals of the so-called United States. Thereby, when you accept Il and Bey at the end of your name and accept your free national name, which is your family name, that name also happens to be a title of nobility that, according to Title 28, Title 26 basically says that you then can cease being a citizen of the United States due to the protocol. It says, and I quote, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such person shall cease to be a citizen of the United States, and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them being the corporate United States, because it was people with titles of nobility that put them in that position in the first place. So if they take on the title of nobility, they are stepping out of the service-oriented system that they agreed to perpetuate. Thereby, they declared that in their bankruptcy on May 1st, on May 4th, they put out a provision for the Philadelphia Society of Moorish Americans, for Moorish Americans, meaning, why Philadelphia? Because that was the last capital in which our government convened. So, they're going to do it there, because that's where the founding fathers founded it all. So, on May 1st, they declared a bankruptcy, but then on May 4th, 3 days later, the first people who get a provision made for them to be able to reclaim and benefit from that bankruptcy is the Moors. But to do so, it explicitly says that you have the right to use and the usage. It also denotes in HJR 75 that we produced them and provided a service. Therefore, if a service is rendered, a payment must be made. So the service that was rendered to the so-called Arabic states was them being brought into the so-called modern world. But what the British and them didn't know at the time when they was just handing out these tracts of land for them to be on was that these lands was heavily influenced with oil. So this is what put them into a predominant situation. So not only now did they have the Islamic legitimacy over the so-called United States, that again was founded by Islamic Moors as well as or Tonkin Moors, now they have to also acknowledge the fact now that this so-called thing has been reestablished, and these people who are Moors, who you have now renamed Negroes, have now the right to take back the titles of nobility, which then put them in a superior position over officers and public officers of the so-called United States. While at the same time now bringing them back into the family of nations and the League of Nations, which was spawned based upon what the Prophet and everybody put down at the convention states at Cuba in 28. So the League of Nations, out of that now, because that couldn't work, because that would have put all of these Western powers back under jurisdiction of Moors, they now had to also create the Geneva Conventions that happened to start the same year that the Prophet got the conveyance back and went on for 5 years after. These original Geneva Conventions is what was made based upon what was given back and absorbed by the person who, the house that runs the United States, which is the House of Saud. Because they are Moors. They are Moors like that, for real. You know what I mean? They're not Arabs like everybody else. That's why all of the Arabs hate the Saudis. over there because they basically are lawless. They doing what they want. Now, that's not right, but the Islamic Waqf that they're functioning from, again, is based upon the ancient alliance that helped spawn America. Any United States historian would tell you that the first nation to recognize the United States was Morocco, but remember, this place that we know as Morocco in North Africa didn't become that until 1956. So what Morocco was acknowledging the United States back then? The Maghreb Morocco, the Moorish Morocco, the Negro Black Morocco, the Morocco that's here, the Morocco that is or was the United States prior to 1774 but switched over after 1779. The United States and General Congress Assembled, that's Morocco too. The Iroquois Confederacy, that's Morocco too. The Union of the Six Nations, that's Morocco too. All of that then is the Maghreb, because all of that happened over here. The Maghreb is the farthest most west. I didn't see that one. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm watching Glenn Beck, and he's talking about, you know, how they trying to invade now and get into the whole Syria thing and get people caught up and getting people hype about, you know, them basically trying to commit missiles and stuff to the exercise. Even Glenn Beck was like, yo, most of the people they're killing out there are the actual people. And these death squads and stuff, most of them was funded and trained by the same people who went in there and got rid of Gaddafi and all of that. Because remember, all of these things were running congruent to one another. All of these things were running under the same operation. So the actual psychological operation of moving the populace to accept another war has now created a space in people where they're almost numb to the overall outcome. Because this war, they want to make an actual war by getting Congress to say, okay. But you got to remember, when this dude went over there and got when he first got president and then bowed his head and put on that gold rope, a fat gold rope chain they put on him, that was a tie. That is him, right, being the president of the United States, but also functioning under the aspect of a quasi-nation. But that's also him accepting an emolument from a foreign emperor or ruler. If anybody that's in government takes money from anybody that's not a United States citizen and is coming from a different government on behalf of that, then that person is committing treason against the United States. So when you say that you're not a citizen of the United States and you're actually a part of a real temple like that, and you're actually like functioning and you're a true person, they are supposed to check with the Department of State, especially if you have it recognized in your passport and stuff like that. They now got to recognize you in the Department of State. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that before they arrest you, they're supposed to call the DOS and they're supposed to ask permission if they could detain you, because they have no jurisdiction over people with titles of nobility. That's why your position as a Moorish American national is so interesting, because it's not like you're saying you are a Dominican, let's say. So, yeah, there's a country called the Dominican Republic and all of that. That's allegedly was created by the ex-slaves that kicked the colonists out, right? That's the story. Okay, so even though that's a solo thing, if they're functioning as the federal government being their government, then that means that they don't exist either. They de facto. When you saying that you're part of Moorish Temple of America, right, and you're also saying that you're a Moorish American national, then what you're also saying is that you are that because you are noble. And you are known as being noble because you have the only noble title or the first noble titles that existed on the physical plane of earth, the Il and the Bay. And because now you're coming through this portal that has already been laid out based upon all of the great works of all of these men like Garvey and Sultan Abdulaziz and Noble Jew Ali and Sheikh Deuce Muhammad and all of these ones that was there at that time, we are the product of that. The reason why we even have aspects of consciousness is because they internalized it enough to be able to put it out there in such a way that anybody after them would be able to get it if they was in the right place, mentally, physically, spiritually. Meaning that we are a nation of multi-age groups, you know. Like you'll see a lot of Christian people, like people that's holding the church down is more the elders, you know what I'm saying? Whereas the youth are now, you know, trying to bring it in, but it's not the type of Christianity that we was growing up with. It can't be because we grew up under that. So you could have people that want to maybe mimic that and make that happen, but in order for any of those churches to live, they're going to have to let the younger ones come in and redefine the goal of what the church is supposed to be. The black community doesn't want to deal with is the fact that the goal of the Christian church was to denationalize black people in mass. It was not to give them a spiritual outlet. Because if that's the case, why don't you give them Buddhism? They said during the colonial period, 70% of the people who lived on the colonies had Qurans. How is that? You don't ever hear about that. If they all had Qurans, then that means that these people were speaking Arabic, some of these people on these colonies. So what people are we really talking about when we talk about the original people? The original people? You know what I'm saying? Because then you're dealing with us in our original capacity. But our original capacity is so perfect that it can't even be spoken in a physical manner with a tongue or a pen or a writing. So we have to use the reasonable facsimiles that are holy enough to define enough the difference between our national character, constitution, bylaws, and divine creed. But men, you know what I'm saying, other than knights, like the Christian knights, they don't live by credos no more. The credo today is, you know, get rich or die trying, you know what I'm saying? Can't fight City Hall. Face down, ass up. Like, this is all of the stuff that people is living by today. They're not living by no divine principles like that. So when you have that fully exhibited and are fully functioning in that, you are accessing the grand body. The grand body, again, being the prophet, as well as the arm, leg, arm, head that represents, again, the temple, the Moorally temple of Solomon, which is the soul of man. But the soul of man, according to the Circle 7 Quran, came out of the spirit of Allah. Therefore, we as men, Moorish American nationals, men and women, Sheikh and Sheikhisses, are the very essence and spirit of God. God then, what constitutes that is being able to govern. Therefore, God, meaning government, ordinance, Department of Justice, or defense, is that aspect of us that is Gumar al-Dubar, the wisdom, the strength, and the beauty to bring all things into existence. So whereas Jupiter is the mother, Saturn is the father. Saturn happens to rule the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is the goat. Capricorn and Saturn's number is 8. The prophet was born on January 8th, which means he is also a Capricorn, which means he also represents Saturn, which also represents father civilization. So these people who want to turn us against our own nation by making us believe that the foreign aspect of ourselves is more important than the autochthon aspect of yourself. So there's nothing wrong with claiming African ancestry if that's really where you're from. You did? But if we use term African in the exoteric, then we're talking about the physical genetic people. But if we talk about Africa in the exoteric, like how these pseudo-Freemasons in the know how they talk, then we're talking about Earth. So, yes, if we're talking about Africa as the entire planet Earth, then, yeah, I am from that. But just like it was that, it was Asian. Just like that, it was Pangean, whatever. But these are names that are given to it by different societies of Moors at the time who are referring to one place that they may or may not have been back to at a certain time by whatever dialect they are speaking then. But what English does is it throws everybody's language into one language. So again, a Moor is a Moor. It can be a physical Moor, but then it could be love, right? But then it could be also having a lot of something. But Moors who are men and women together are a lot. But a lot is also the feminine principle, the feminine version of Allah. You see? So the same word is being put into circumstance, certain circumstance that puts them into a context where they cannot, where we cannot localize what we are, where it's like it just can't be that. So if I'm wearing a fez, it's not that I'm wearing a fez because I'm a Moor or Moroccan. I'm wearing a fez because that's what Shriners do or that's what Turks do. You see? But they don't see none of them people wearing this outside but me, with no writing, with no tax downs or nothing like that. So instead of them seeing the difference in that, the human mind is then trying to bring it back to something that it can define, you see, and then codify and then lock away and then understand, even if there is no understanding behind the observation. So the same happened with this pseudo war that they flipping on everybody, because if they go to war with Syria, that means they're going to have to go right back into Iraq, because it's the same type of government. It's a Shia government. They just got out of Iraq. At least he did that. So they're going to have to commit people to go back in there. The only difference now is that they got better ties with Russia since then. Because with all of the backlash of Halliburton and all of that, it kicked a lot of them out. So the Russians is in there trying to cake out. He's trying to cake out in a manner that allows them to still look like the good guy by supporting cannibals. So Glenn Beck is showing this dude straight up, one of the rebels that helped them break down Libya and is now in there helping them and clear out the evil regime or whatever's going on there. And this dude straight cut this dude open, cut his liver out, and started eating it on TV. Talking about Allah, talking about glory to Allah. You understand? That's not the Islam that I don't know what kind of Islam that is. I ain't never heard of no cannibal Islam. That's crazy. But people like that are obviously insane. You understand? Obviously. But this is a controlled program that these people created. They created Assad and the same government that they're trying to get out over there. They created them at the same time they created Saddam and the rest of them. It's regime change across the board through color revolution. First they get rid of the Egyptian dude, then they get rid of Gaddafi. Now they trying to get rid of these dudes. The only people left is Iran, but they can't rock with them heavy like that because they too ensconced with the Russians and the Chinese. And now the Iraqis, who just getting their shit back together. But based on the deficit of them fighting each other in the course of the war, they've broken down any semblance of what the original mandate was or is. So based on that, here in America, you got this whole switch or change of the guard, where you have one faction of the government falling into the chasm of perpetual debt, and then the other faction of the United States of the government trying to push them into the perpetual war phase. What I found very interesting was that they had a comment from William Ayers. And William Ayers, for those people who don't know, is or was one of the terrorists in the 60s that was used by the CIA counterintelligence to destroy the peace movement. One of the blowback techniques they would use would be that they would get people, usually white Protestant liberals, to go out there and march with King and stuff like that, and they got them all together in a certain sequester and hopped them up on acid and all that other type of stuff, free love stuff, and that whole program was then used to then demoralize them after the wave of assassinations that took place, where they killed Kennedy, they killed Bobby, they killed Martin, they killed Malcolm, they killed Medgar. They just went in on everybody. So that created a disenfranchised system amongst the white people and white upper and lower middle class between the years, I would say, of 69 and like 77, thank you, and like 77, right around the time of the blackout, where they really didn't know what to do. They was polarized. So other than disco, there was really nothing else that these people was really involved in. All the counterintelligence stuff was going on because this is the beginning of them now trying to get into Iran now that the British got kicked out. So they start polarizing these kids into more radicalized means of protest. And so one of the biggest ones they created was the Weatherman Underground. William Ayers and his wife, I think her name was Wilma Dorn or Bernadette Dorn or something like that. They were leading a lot of these runs on the campuses and all of that, and radicalized it to such a point where they used people like Abbie Hoffman and these other intellectual Jews to add in and speak for the so-called unspoken for, which were now the black radicals who had now been disenfranchised through the disillusionment of all and attack on all of the Panthers, as well as the Young Lords in New York. Once those organizations fell, the state organizations created the after-school programs and then started hiring these same Black Panthers and Young Lords and these people who were now going to Ivy League schools and lecturing about they battles and stuff with the government. These kids now was disenfranchised. So a lot of them, this is when the gang stuff started. You know what I'm saying? All of this now is going down. By the mid-'70s now, we get the Arabs calling the note on everything, and then make it so that way you got to pay them millions of dollars for oil. So what the United States did to combat that was turn its national currency into national reserve currency into the world reserve currency. And anytime a nation does that, it devalues its own national currency to the point that it has to print more just to stay afloat, meaning that the minute it stops printing money, the country is done. Because it has made its dollar, but this was the only way they felt they could deal with the Arabs. So what they said was like this: okay, we got to buy your oil, but we're going to make it now that our world currency is the means to buy your oil. So if you got rubles, you got to convert your rubles into dollars for you to buy oil, from the Arabs. And this scheme worked because they were able to create an intelligence network with CIA, could destabilize the Middle East, you see what I'm saying, and keep the Arabs and these people fighting while they could find ways to come in and make side deals or whatever and get better interest rates or whatever on the oil they was trying to siphon out of these countries. So you see what I'm saying? It always comes down to nations being absorbed and being put into the positions of becoming businesses, countries becoming businesses. And that's what they did. So the so-called Muslim fundamentalists, all of these people were created by a guy they call the Caliph of Berlin, who was a Jew masquerading as a Muslim cleric. And he's the one who who converted all of the Muslims into the Nazi thing. From the Balkan regions and the Eastern European regions of so-called Al-Europa. So these Muslim Nazis were now the ones fighting against the United States, Americans, and all of that, based upon all of this being created out of this guy, again called the Caliph or the Sultan of Berlin, who was directly under Hitler, who was a Jew himself. Both he and Hitler were Jews, who was acting like a Muslim, telling all these people what to do, recruiting all of these Arabs out of Syria, Iraq, and Egypt. Egypt at this time went as far in as the Sudan. And so this network was called the Muslim Brotherhood, but it was always in conjunction with what MI5 and them was running, because after the war, they basically used it as an arm to destabilize the Arabs against one another so they could get better deals for their oil. So this plays out today in the serial addiction of oil that the United States owes to first Saudi Arabia, who has its first allegiance to, which is why they call Saudi Arabia the kingdom. Saudi Arabia, funny enough, is the protectorate governing nation over Morocco. Right? Now you got to understand, Syria has been in a state of martial law. The state of Syria has been in martial law from 1970 to 2000. The present regime has been in power since 1963 to 2011. So that means as long as the country has been in existence, this coup d'etat and this fake government, which has been a puppet of the United States, has been there ever since. So what this shows us, based upon what has happened for us starting with the Gulf War, was the plan for the new American century that I told everybody to look up, which was the brainchild of Wolfowitz and the rest of them. And in this, it was to establish the American empire by regime change in the region, by democratizing all of the east of the so-called nations by using some of the friendlier Islamic states like Bahrain as an example. And so it started with Lebanon and Beirut back when I was a kid, with the Iran and the Contras. Then, by the time I got to be a young man, it went into the Gulf War, the first Gulf War. Then, that was Iraq. So we got Lebanon first, Lebanon and Beirut first. Then we get Iraq. Then from Iraq, the destabilization goes to Egypt. Then all of a sudden from Egypt, it pops off in Libya. Then from Libya, now it pops off in Syria. Israel and Palestine is always getting bombed out, so you can't really count them. But they're always put in that, position as a quasi-state, because there's really no such thing as a Palestinian. There's only the Aboriginal people from that region, which are the darker peoples of that place. But of course, you know how that goes. So, with all that being said, now that the United States is going through its second phase of reorganization, you have situations where the public is not aware that everything is being reorganized into this new business model of exporting as much U.S. democracy worldwide and locking down the people who created or who are the faces of that domestically. So between now and September 22nd, there's going to be, a whole new phase, because now they're coming into play with the money that they owe in terms of the national debt that people keep adding to when they process people under fictitious means. That's creating the cycle for them to have to borrow more and invade more countries to stay afloat. They have to justify themselves and how they live, or their way of life, however they can. But what that has done is it has turned them literally into cannibals, where they are now devouring their own country and any country that they have some sort of treaty in. So the same way they told you back during the Iraq War that they was looking for WMDs, remember that? Looking for those weapons of mass destruction, which was really a play on words, because that really meant the ancient Moorish, Elamite, Sumerian technology that they found in that cache under the museum at Baghdad and all of that. That's actually the weapons of mass destruction they were looking for. They were looking for what was called the cache of Manerta, which when you read the Ramayana dynasty, it talks about Manerta after he conquered, and all the weaponry and all of that of the gods that was confiscated was stored in the holy vaults in the earth under where the battle took place, which again is the ancient Mesopotamian region. So this is what they were getting. This is where they found that battery, that clay battery that was still on, that they was able to power jets and rockets for a whole 2 years from, and some other stuff. All of that, those artifacts that allegedly went missing, these were all the weapons they're using, or that was taken. But Just like they told you back then that they was looking for weapons of mass destruction, they had to stop this dude. Now, instead of weapons of mass destruction, they know that don't work, so they're going back to things like sarin gas. So they got the UN people over there looking for sarin gas and all of that, when really that's just that's the G. You know what I'm saying? They running the game again, the same game. They got the UN inspectors in there. Only difference, like I said, is that this dude is talking about that this is going to be the end. You know, he actually wants to declare war in this aspect, which, again, is going to be a death sentence for him, because with that, they're going to have the means to impeach him. But see, unlike Clinton, they tried to impeach him before the Balkan thing, and that kind of blew up in their face. So with this time, I think they're going to wait till he get into the war and then try to call for the impeachment. But like I said, we've been building on this at Super Heru Radio for about 5 years now, for almost as long as we've been on the radio. The series of events that lead to World War V that we're in now. They saying World War III, but remember the First World War, then the Second World War, then there was the Cold War that went on for like 30, 40, about 50 years. And from the Cold War, then you went into the war on drugs, right? Then after the war on drugs, you went into the war on, and then that war on drugs was a global war. That led them to all the international countries where they learned how to create better markets to sell their drugs from, right? Then from the war on drugs, we went to the war on terror. So technically, this would be then like World War V now, which is the Armageddon War. This is where the region of Israel called Megiddo comes in. That just so happens to go through or begin the pipeline that they want to bring through, down through that part of the world. Bring it down all the way down to the Gulf. Have it go through Pakistan, have it go through Afghanistan, all of that. So they just pulled out of Iraq. They're just pulling out of Afghanistan. And now if they're going to Syria, remember they're already in Libya, and they're already supporting Nazi, Muslim Brotherhood, Nazi Arab cannibals, rapists and cannibals, who are Al-Qaeda. Because Al-Qaeda is them. Al-Qaeda was the creation of the government during the time of what they call Charlie Wilson's War. So, again, they create their own enemies to have position and jurisdiction over later. You know what I'm saying? So, these are all created enemies, but out of them, there's also actual governments with funding and money that are Arab that have the ability to fight back, like that Hezbollah shit. Those dudes can actually fight back. And the United States historically does not do good with people who fight back against them. You dig? They don't really do that. So this is the crucial time now for those of us who understand what it is to be a national of the country and the government that you are a part of, not part and parcel of. When it says in the Divine Constitution bylaws that you are part and parcel of this government, it means this government. Moorish Science Temple of America and the Moorish Science Temple that is your physical body, as well as the grand body, which is the prophet. You know what I'm saying? It is not a Freemasonic contingent, you know what I'm saying, or a Freemasonic equivalent or a Moorish equivalent to some sort of Freemasonic ritual. In fact, it is the opposite. Yet, due to the ignorance of our own people and our own stereotypes when it comes to religious garb as a means of outward expression, You know, how many times you ever be around somebody and you don't even be garbed out. They just know that you kind of conscious about stuff, and all of a sudden they start talking to you about, you know, some old deep shit or Africa or some other shit that you really don't give a damn about in the moment. That's because they don't deal with that type of stuff every day. So when they see you, you are a trigger for that for them. So they feel that they're not there, so they need to prove, just like a child needs to prove to an adult that they've done something good or right, that they are still about the movement or the struggle or whatever. Think about that. You went from having a movement to being in the struggle. See what I'm saying? Bringing you down in it. Downgrading the potential of what it was. So when we say, again, Moor is science, we're talking about all science that came or comes from Moors. And as Moors are the original title holders, Eels and Bays of the planet, even if you don't want to acknowledge it, it still make it what it is. For part of the temple, the steps that look. Archaic back in the Prophet's law. And the Prophet's law was really jurisprudence, positive law, natural equity, that which looks at that which should have been done as done. Not how much liability I can escape for not doing what I know I was supposed to do. So, like I said, this coming World War V, I did a DVD at the National Black Theater years ago called Red China Rise in World War V, where we went in explicitly on this, as well as the ancient spiritual connection to what's going on with this. Because remember, all of these so-called nations that's dealing have gods that are also warring with each other on a hyperdimensional level while this is happening, right? You got Libya that was attacked, so that's El, right? That's El, and that's Yahweh, because those were Canaanite aspects of Bay and El, or Al-Bayet, or El-Bayet, right? Then you got Egypt, so that's all of the pantheon over there, right? Osar, or Sept, right? Then you got Syria, so that's Zoroaster, that's Manichaeism, Manichae. Then you got, who else they been fighting? It's Libya, Egypt. So that's Manichae, Asar and them, Asar and Set. Manichae and Zoroaster, Manichae for Syria, Zoroaster for Iran. In Kemet is Asar and Aset and them. Then in Libya you got El and Al-Bayet and Yahweh and where else they at? Oh, they trying to go to Yemen. So then that's also Coptic, now Aksumite religion, so that's Christ, right? So all of this is going by and it embodied by the people being slaughtered and all of that. With the Kurdish people in Iraq and them, the Kurds or the Shias, they worship Melek-Tos. Melek-Tos is the black blue man with peacock feathers with the four arms, with the in the lotus position, who is another representation of Amen, who is another representation of Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen. So all of these, so again, I'm showing you how your culture, who you are as a Moorish American national, is being transposed and put back to you in all of these different versions without actually commenting and codifying and saying that this is what it is. That's why I think, in my opinion, Dark Scope 418, my book, is actually one of the best comic books out, because it's one of the only, or maybe has been the first only, come out and really get deep into Moorish history analogous to so-called black history, and how that actually leads to a supernatural occurrence in history for us to awaken to who and what we truly are on a mental, physical, and spiritual level. Because I grew up learning about hyperdimensional reality, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, right? Fractal theory, all of this stuff by reading comic books, man. And then taking the comic book and then having textbooks where it's giving me the clinical definition of what I'm seeing visually. Because men are visual learners. Moors by nature read from left to right. From right to left by nature. But what happens is we are retaught how to be over here since Reconstruction to read the other way, which in some of us, we actually have allergic reactions to that, to the syntax of what we are being forced to comprehend. And then it's forcing us to outcry and rebel against whatever that is being said, because genetically it doesn't feel right to the child. So what do? They have schools so that way when your child exhibits this type of behavior, they can automatically codify it and qualify it as a disadvantage, and then put that child in a form of peonage and supervision to then get more information about you. All schools in the United States are military installations. That's why they have guns and metal detectors and all of that. That's just a fact. Any flag with a gold fringe around it is a military flag. Whatever they trying to tell you now. Moore told me today how they trying to say that they don't file public records. I said, what is that? How are they saying that they can't file a public document? I said, well, ask them, how do people who have churches or anything else file and have something on file with the state that they actually exist? How do they do that? And if so, and if that's not true, then what the hell is this building really housing? She just kept saying she don't understand. She don't understand. Okay. So that means they have functionally illiterate people working at these places, or people who are specifically of the type of character that are disagreeable. Whatever it is, whenever you want to get something done with them, it don't work. But once you get into the system, you see, the checks and everything come on time and all of that work. So in that, our people have become used to being citizens of the United States. So when you tell them, again, that they have to do something or be something, they feel they got to do it. They're compelled to do it. But they are the first, allegedly derived from the first people who said, no, we're not going to fall under the jurisdiction of somebody else to do that. That's how you know it wasn't them. And based on how a lot of us act today, I see that it really wasn't a lot of us. So just because you see somebody wearing a King Tut or getting a tattoo that has some type of pseudo knowledge on it and you know what that is, don't mean that they know it like you. It would be nice if people could unify and they could come and represent and want to hold people down, because that's what white people do. When Madonna got on and she got into Kabbalah, she found Daniel Mack, gave him $15 million so that way he could just sit down all day and translate the Kabbalah. And his translations are one of the best. Because all he got to do is just sit down and just do that all day. But he know it ain't really for them. You can't be reading that shit all day and think that back in the days at the time that this was written and the people who wrote that and the people who taught that look like him. He know that's not true. So when they act like that's how it was today amongst me and you, that puts us at a deficit because that makes us doubt ourselves because we look to them for whatever reason for validation as to who we are. But they already told you, in this society, you are a nigger. Don't give a damn if you Oprah, how many billions you got. You can't buy that bag. Put that down. You can't come in here with your hair all boofed out like that because that really ain't your afro. You dig? Or I just don't like niggas. Whatever it is. There's always going to be a white person to do that. There's some white people won't even feel like that. But if they was put in a position in a bad day around an ignorant nigga, it might come out. And it should. Because the original nigga was not us. The secret was we was never niggas to begin with. We just perfected it. We diagnosed it and perfected it and made it to the point where they scared to say it. Police will pop you right in the head quicker than they call you a nigga. You call a white man the devil all day, Yakub all day. Call him a racist. No, that's the worst thing you can call a white man because they know that that's the truest thing that they are. It is. You could call a black person racist, but it ain't the same thing. Because what brings the sting is whoever's in control at the time. So when we was the white man, it was just like this. Only thing they was like this. They was just under the gun. They couldn't do nothing. So they made enough deals, produced enough white women, had enough sex with each other, and agreed to keep the secret long enough to make it happen. And by their time, because we was divided, and the division that existed then is the same division existing now. They acting like they don't know what happened to you, but all you got to do is listen to Super Heru Radio. We done laid it out. Nobody could challenge that. Everybody talking black history this, black history that. Yeah, but black history with no nationality attached to it is a fiction. And nobles don't deal with fiction. So you could say whatever you want. Elam Bey is a title of nobility and a known title of nobility to the government of the United States. But based upon what portal you come through to manifest that, they know if you pretended to the throne or is actually on it. The difference between watching the throne and being it. Niggas could watch the throne all day. But niggas can't go to certain places until certain people leave. When you raise your vibration and your energy enough, when it goes down, you can be in a cipher because now then all of the forces have to come to your aid because anything can happen. So now you got to really be in the spirit because the divine creed as being witnessed by God is the faith. And faith is the evidence of those things unseen. The belief in things hoped for. So there is a consistency that comes with being unified within the name and within the power of what has been established. Because then you get to establish it in the way that you get to. And cease to have to deal with all of the rudimentary functions of having to deal with these people in their position. The true nationality card is an international passport, man. Based upon the work that the Prophet and those who helped divinely prepare him, man, get to the point of manifesting. That's one thing. He was never one to always want to do it alone. But he was one to give credit where credit is due. And he gave credit to the God Allah. He gave credit to Zoroaster. He gave credit to all of these gods. All of these gods that if you read that look at that temple card and look at the gods that's mentioned. Christ, Zoroaster, Buddha, all of that. And then look at the countries that's at war right now and look at the gods associated with them countries. This is leading to something. An ecclesiastical government or the ecclesiastical district or jurisdiction is that which is a part of the grand body. The grand body is the prophet. So Moors, we not supposed to have these problems, but these problems is coming because you got people that's being put in trick bags by not understanding that being a part of having a glove on one arm don't mean that you got a glove on two. On one hand means you got a glove on two. More science is all science. To me, I don't see a distinction in it when I read about, like if I'm reading about King Tut, or I'm reading about Hannibal, or I'm reading about John Horse, or I'm reading about Estevanico, or Jabal Tariq, or Abu Bakari, or the Anasazi, or the Olmec. Like, I don't make a distinction in my mind like, oh, that's these type of black people. That's this type of black people. I'm like, okay, that's this type of Moor. That's this type of Moor. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't look at Magneto and then look at Captain America and then look at Superman and then look at Batgirl and be like, okay, Superman, Captain America, and Batgirl, y'all superheroes. But because you, Magneto, a villain, you can't be counted as, you can't be in the comic book. If he wasn't in the comic book, there'd be nothing for them to do. That's what I mean, the order and the chaos. They always got to have somebody to blame. You always got to have the patsy to get out. You always got to have the order to flip it. So when you see them pictures of Jim Jones with Wallace Muhammad, like, you can see why certain things went down. You know what I'm saying? But now today, niggas want to talk to me like they TMZ, like, oh, nah, those was doctored pictures, and that was, like, all right, man. Like, whatever, man. Like, believe what you want to believe. But at one time, the Nation of Islam, they used to call their mosque the temple. You used to go to the temple. And the ministers and them used to wear feathers. You know what I'm saying? That's real talk. So this thing ain't just come out of nowhere. They ain't just manifest and say, oh, Elijah Muhammad was the first one to ever, like, bring that. No, Elijah Muhammad was the one to bring the message. He was the messenger. And he was honorable because he kept his Masonic oath, meaning he walked the line, got his money, did his thing, but made sure that he put out what he needed to and kept the message the same. The message didn't get switched up till after he left. Because the ones that came in after they left was now subject to flattery and influence of the Western intelligence community, which is still operating through these dudes today. All about houses, you know what I'm saying? It's great. You can tell me all you want about anything. You can tell me all you want about how, you know what I'm saying, this could matter, all of that. But if it's not something that I'm seeing go down in my life that I'm not hearing nobody else experience, then I know that it's not necessarily something that I should be. Same thing. Not everybody know what it's like to have to go down there and show and prove who you are based upon the annexation of your name. Only a certain group of people know how to deal with that. And then you always wind up being dealt with a person that looks like you that's trying to hate on you for doing something that they don't have the courage to do themselves, or like you crazy or something. It's the first thing black people do. Not white people. They want to embrace it. They want to know. They'll condescend you, but then once you put them in a place, I had to put my neighbor in a place the other day. I ain't talked to this chick since. You know what I'm saying? And not even on some angry shit, but you're not going to tell me that I'm an American citizen like you and I got to do exactly what you do because you older. No, that just means that I figured something out a little earlier than you did, and based upon my lineage, it's true. And because of that, my ancestors left me something. But because your ancestors been living off of what my ancestors been left here for so long, y'all done got comfortable in thinking that this is all you. And that we all the same. I said, well, when you first saw me, you thought I was black, right? Well, yeah. I said, okay, well, I didn't think that you was white, though. I didn't look at you as any of that. I wait for you to tell me that. But I'm not. Because being black in this country gets you two in the head, Trayvon. And then I had a more there, and I'm like, nah. And I said, he can't go out like that. I can't go out like that. So I got to let him know from now at 5, you are not what these people saying you are. Because if they try to say that you this and try to say that you that, you better tell them that you now. Because anything that they have jurisdiction over, they'll try to eat. Because they're cannibals. Where do you think these crazy Arabs and these people learning this shit from? They've been being brutalized by these niggas at Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib and all of that for all of these years. People are morally bankrupt. And anybody that's in that vicinity, in that arena, is participating in that. You got to. That's the only way they could trust you. If not, they done. I saw Andy Weiner one day in Park Slope campaigning. That's my word. And he asked me, oh, wow, you from Morocco? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, yeah, I am. And we built for a second. I was like, whoa. I was like, well, you just getting into this? He was like, yeah, you know, I'm trying to make something happen, blah, blah, blah. So you got to vote. I was like, nah, I don't do that, man. I was like, but you got to watch out, G. Politics is a dirty game, homie. You better chill. Like, nah, somebody has to. I said, good luck, homie. I said, well, you know, you're Wiener, right? I was like, yeah, you get in. Look what happened. How was I didn't know. Caught up. Because nobody gets into that to help anybody. That's not what government is about anymore. Government is a people-run business. It's not a for-people business. It'll give you stuff, but it'll always take something away from you. Because it was set up to be able to be checked. But they've created a system where they could always blame the system. Like, oh, well, you said go, so I can't stop it now. It's like there's a fail-safe built in everything. If shit get too hectic or sometime for your mind to process something, what happens? What do? You pass out. That's an overload. You got to the point where you can't do nothing else. Shit is just so critical that you got to go somewhere else. So you pass out. Same thing the injury. The injury is so hard where you need time to just bring it down. So you go somewhere else mentally and give the body a time to get unswole. The microcosm is always the macro. So like I'm saying, according to Title 26 and all of that, once you take that title of nobility, that's it. That's who you are. You're no longer a part of them. So why do they want to still hold on to you? Because they're holding on to the part of you that they are using to justify their own existence. If you are taking care of you, then you don't need them to do it. That means then that they are abrogating some sort of authority that they don't really have. So if they don't have the right to a title of nobility to accept one, they don't have the, and be in the government, they don't have the right to deny one from somebody who's not in the government to accept one, unless they're citizens of the United States. So unless you take a citizenship of one of these other nations that really are foreign to your original one, that's even better than just being here lawless under them, because at least there'll be a record of you proclaiming that you are something else. So when and if the actual state is instated where it is now correct, where it's a uniform way to get things done, and only those that do it like that can be recognized, that's good. That's order out of the chaos. I can accept that even as a free thinker, as a proponent of chaos, because I've been in this chaos and seeing this thing go down from the 90s. You know what I'm saying? So it would be great to see something of actual substance where you could see. You know what I'm saying? With the cannibalistic system.
Is that next to you already? No.
You know what I'm saying? It just always turns into something else. So if anybody wants to call in, 347-637-1184. 347-637-1184. It was interesting. See. 714, you on Super Heru Radio?
Whoa, hold on. What's up, brother?
Peace. How you doing, brother?
Peace to the God. Whoa.
Peace. How you?
I'm over here trying to fish. I'm wonderful, man. Glad I'm chiming in with you. I'm a student of yours. I didn't even mean to put my hand up, but I will, say something. I'm a student of AA, and all I can say is, man, you're right on the money. When you put the info out there, I do my homework.
Thank you, Ben.
And back it up. And
thank you,
I don't even watch the news really. So when I heard you talking about Syria today, I had to ask the kids. I said, "What's going on in Syria?" I mean, we know what's going on, but
that's real talk. That's real talk, man.
I'm like,
and it's big, man. They really talk about some crazy stuff, but it's also good because it's been in time with what we've been going in on for so long. You know what I mean? Because they're crazy, It's not gonna work. But they're gonna do it.
Can I ask? Let me ask you a question. Wow, this is wonderful. Okay, I listen to this show out here on the West Coast. I'm in Cali, man, and they have a dude that's a Moor on there, and then another guy. He goes in tough on like commerce with the the UCC and all of that stuff. So there's kind of a divide. You know what I mean? I'm looking for the first time in my life, into really nationalism. So I do. I listen to the show. I try to study. But it's time to do something. I was just talking to the kids right now. They was like, "What are you listening to?" So I showed some of your old DVDs to them. I showed them more phonetic technology, the cover, and then I showed them Science of Superheroes. And they, she was like, what are they talking about? I'm like, history, politics, this and that. But I'm just trying to get them to see that, like you were saying about a Moor, you're not black. You're not
you're
you're not a continent. Right.
Yeah, you're not a thing.
You're not what is an African American? What is that? That's a
right. It's a thing. It's a figment of your imagination. Yeah.
Right. So, fam, it's going down. I'm actually I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, man, that's great.
But I got to get with you because you do extend an invitation. Well, how can I really rap with you, bro? Like as far as doing the nationality.
Just hit me up. Just hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com.
Okay.
And we could take it from there.
Will do. My name is Will.
Indeed. Pleasure to meet you, Will.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, brother. You peace to the gods, brother. Peace to the gods, man. Love you guys, and blessings upon your family.
Thank you, King. I appreciate it, man.
Same here.
Indeed, Lord.
Much love.
Love and light to you and the nation, Lord. Peace.
Thank you, my brother. Peace.
Okay, we got 832 on Super Heru Radio. 832, you on Super Heru Radio? Okay. Uh, 917, you on Super Heru Radio?
Can you hear me? Am I 917?
Peace, yes, ma'am. How you doing?
Oh, hi. Okay, hi, Brother Spear. I just had to call. I listen as often as I can, and I just had to call to say hi because you are always so right on so many levels.
Thank you,
You're welcome. And I do want to participate in, some of your courses and stuff like that. Me, myself, I'm going through some legal things right now where I can't work right now, but, as soon as that's together, best to believe I'll be, getting this information that you're selling in the books and stuff that out of all the people that I'm listening to and go through, through the internet, it seems like you really are so dedicated and so sincere,
Thank you.
But when I
really, really appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I was laughing at it because I was watching the show T.I. and Tiny. I don't know if you're familiar with that on VH1.
Yeah.
And Tiny's friend, she came out with this thing today talking about she wants to be white, right? So I said, what? So, at first it's like, for such older people, they like, oh, my God, this is, really just sounds like an abomination or something. But when you really think about a lot of younger people and how they feel today, they felt like, probably what they was told is like they've been force-fed ever since they was a baby what it meant to be black and that you are black. And it's like, I think by her saying that, hey, I'm tired of this, she's not probably saying that she want a color to be, white, but she's saying, if this is all the negative things that I have to take on because you told me I was black, then I want to see on the other side of the road.
And I want to be something else.
Right.
That's real talk.
It was, right? I thought it was, right? I thought it was positive, even though at first it might have been kind of negative. So thank you so much.
They bring the skin thing into it. They bring the skin thing into it and throw it all off and make you think that the skin is the thing, when really they want the skin. They just want us to give it up.
Yeah,
and they don't educate the woman to love herself, so she don't teach the nation to love itself. And then she blamed the man blame her, and the children suffer. So I really appreciate the support, Queen. I really do. Thank you for calling
me.
You're
welcome.
Letting us know.
Your family.
You too, Queen.
You're welcome.
Peace.
Okay, peace.
Love and light to you.
Good night. Okay, bye-bye.
We got 347 on Super Heru Radio.
Hey, what's up, Aseer?
Peace.
Peace.
How you doing?
Peace, Selena. What's good?
All right.
I hope all is well.
Maintaining one day at a time,
No doubt. I really don't have much to say, except for the fact that most people that I talk to, within my family, and I believe in starting things in your own backyard, they're afraid and they feel like they're going to give up something that they're not going to be able. They feel like they're giving up their whole lives if they even study. And right, their Moorish history, because just like you said earlier, I definitely agree about with that. That once you study as a Moor and you take on that mindset, you know that history or so-called history is actually yours. Everything revolves around us. You get what I'm saying?
Like
and
that.
you just know everything is really about you. It is. It's true though, and it was you that actually helped me to to see that. Because once I started studying through those eyes, I started to see things for what it actually was.
Right.
And a lot of people are afraid because even me, like I know just signing my child out, my children out to homeschool them, the attitude and the nastiness, they don't want to let you go.
No,
they
want to be able to tell you what to do all the time. They do not want to
give us free at all. So
no, they don't. They don't. And some niggas don't want to be free. That's the other side of the game.
Most
they
don't.
create the ones staying in it. They want to stay in it. They want to be as locked down spiritually as possible, so that way they don't have the responsibility of actually standing up as a man or a woman saying, no, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to do that. So, of course, they'll make a documentary about Angela Davis. But this dude, the president, ain't going to put out no national referendum, no national pardon for her, because they know then that he's about something else. And for whatever reason, when you get into that position, you agree not to do anything for your own people, specifically black people. If you any other race, you could get money, hook your family up, nepotism, anything else. When you black, though, these Negroes get in there, get so loyal, they'd be like a bloodhound. They'd be like a nice lap dog, and it always
they're
be the
actually
most
worse
disgruntled people
than the actual savage now. And it's I've been through it all. Like I've seen it, I've experienced that, and I'm like, wow. And they always put like a certain type of Negro, know. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't want to offend people, but they put a certain type of self-hating Negro that ain't even from here in a certain position all the time.
Or who's even going to be even more. But this same one, you come up in there speaking French, and that's a French dude or whatever, they'll hook you up.
Yeah.
You go in there speaking Spanish, they hook you up. You go in there speaking Yiddish, they hook you up. You go in there speaking anything other than English, they'll hook you up because now you look other than a nigga. Now you like, oh, maybe this nigga was owned by a German, or maybe he was owned by an Italian, or maybe he was owned by a Haitian. It's like that.
Because I know when they even meet me or look at me, the so-called Caucasoid, like when I'm like I said, even signing out my child, they look up at me, and it's like you can see the fear in them because they like, uh-oh, we're losing another one. Just with that one step, I saw it. They like, oh, shit, we're losing another one. We got to, so all of these things, all this whole bullshit system is just designed to keep you, like you said, perpetuating the same crap over and over. And it's over, like they're portraying us as not only buffoons and savages, but they're making it seem like the world is so out of control, it needs them to come in and clean it up. But I'm in Brooklyn, they're doing drive-bys, like babies haven't been getting shot since the 80s crack era.
Word.
Now all of a sudden you got babies getting shot left and right. So
because it's death squads, they got the Mossad death squads in the hood.
I know.
Training in the police stations.
You got
learning how to do counterintelligence surveillance on everybody, and they also got these self-hating, pseudo-conscious Negroes that go into the army, go into the police, don't tell nobody, come back out at the African Street Festival, at everywhere else, talking to you about all of this conscious bullshit or whatever, when these niggas got to give SAC reports every other week, every Wednesday or every last Thursday, last time I heard.
Right.
It's a scam.
It is, and real recognize real, but the people that's I notice I'm not attracted to that shit. And I notice from a lot, it's a lot of things on the internet, a lot of things out there, but I always gravitated towards you. And I've heard a lot of people say, like, you're one of the few, very few.
Thank you.
Especially in your age bracket, because you're very young. So it's like I gravitate towards you, but I see a lot of people gravitating towards bullshit, what goes to show you what actually they are.
Exactly.
And it confused me because I'm like,
that's why we can't
I
get mad.
came from a dead
person.
I'm like, how could I? That's why I suffer so much. I'm like, how could I emerge from the womb of somebody in this state? So
because they was not in their right mind when they had us. They docked us into a tour of duty that had no jurisdiction of our true heritage.
But out of all the people in my family, it's like I'm the only one.
Yeah. Just like everybody who is the only one in their family is a member of the temple. That's how it works. You are held in high regard, and the prophet is held in every home except his own. So the people that you come up with ain't going to give you the respect, or they're going to look at you like you owe them something, especially when you get notoriety from other people and don't mess with them for whatever reason, because they feel like you owe them something, because they feel like you still Sam or Elizabeth or whoever they was when you skinned your knee.
And they keep trying to pull me in and get me to.
And they keep trying to make you that person. That ain't you. That ain't me.
And they don't like the change. And I repulse a lot of people. They look at me funny. They want to hate on you. They want to tell you, no, don't do this, don't do this that way. And it's just a lot of shit.
Yeah, you weird. You're a weirdo. You don't have no real knowledge. You're antisocial. You just don't get down. You don't hang with the you don't. We men. We got to do things as men. You know, when niggas started talking to me like that, I started smelling the homo shit, and I was like, nah, I'm not with none of that. I don't need to be with you alone, nigga, because how y'all niggas get down, you got funny style. Like any dudes who's always with dudes all the time, you never with a female, you never seen with a female. Something wrong with that. Same thing with a female. You always with a female. You always out with a bunch of chicks. You don't never be out with your own hair. You don't never rock your own shit. You don't never get in the water. You don't never sleep with your head on the pillow after you get your perm. You don't never, you know what I'm saying? You don't never drink water. Shit like that. Like, nah, this person ain't even human. These people not even human.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
These black people are not even humans.
And
they
again,
some other shit.
I've been listening to you for a minute, and still I stand alone. I still stand alone, and it's all good, but it's just like they're falling like flies, but it's like the few of us that's here, we're caught in a whirlwind. I feel, I'm not getting blown up in it, but it's like I see it, and it's really getting worse now.
You're not paying attention. Right, because you're a witness. We're all witnesses to the end. You know what I mean?
Right, and that was prophesized, and
that's it. That's the only reason why we still here. The only reason why I think Creator got people like us, the Super Heru family, the members of the True Temple and shit like that. Only reason why I think we still here is because the Creator still wants us to present hope to people and let the average.
And that's exactly what you did, because nobody put me on to you. I actually was searching for information, and I just happened. Well, there's no such thing as just a coincidence, but I happened upon you, and I was like, wow. There's actually people out here, original people, that feel the way I feel, think the way I think, but on a higher level. And I was so happy. I was just, you got me through so much. And I really love you, and I really love Selena, and I really appreciate all the work that you do, because I swear,
thank you, man.
You really saved my life in a lot of ways, and my children.
Inshallah, man, we do that for each other. We really appreciate it too, man. I'm watching it right now, make all of these beautiful things, man, and it's like, wow, when the world actually catches up to what we all are supposed to do, it's really going to be a better place, man. But until then, we got to keep shit as tight as possible, because it's like this. If you, within the sound of my voice, ain't uplifting from humanity by uplifting your own family and stuff and maintaining your sanity, nobody else around you is doing it. If you don't get it done, nobody is going to get it done. Nobody is going to be able to get it actually worked out in a manner for our children other than you. That's it.
Exactly. And I've actually had people tell me, I'm sorry, go ahead, babe.
No, go ahead. No,
I've actually had people tell me that, I'm setting my children up to fail because, I'm homeschooling them, and, they can get more being in the system. But, you know, it's like just so much.
We get the same pressure.
Pardon?
Yeah, but until we build our own school, our own private school,
that's
I
not
don't have
going
to worry about my children being molested and all of that. Well,
and
it has to.
Listen,
the only
that's
way
not. I see. It's none of that. Like, this all has to come down. In a lot of ways, I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing, because the only way these Negroes are going to see it is if it hits them in the ass. What you don't see, you feel. Yeah,
that's
what you don't see, you feel.
I know that's not happening to my kids because my child is not in that situation for that to happen. The only way I can guarantee that would be by doing
if he's with. That's right.
That's what I do.
Right.
So there's no question. And I see the difference. I see my son kick higher, run faster, read better, write books earlier, swim better, talk faster, talk better than all of these kids that have 5-bedroom mansions. He in class kicking they behind, and at the same time humble enough to still want to play with them.
And
it don't all the time be the kids that got the problem.
Yeah, so.
Right, he ain't eating that either. He ain't got the jail food. He ain't got a lot of the crazy shit they do. But also, it don't necessarily be the kids that be the comparative ones. It be the parents. The parents be like, how is this happening? How is this person, how is this child coming to a position where they have less and they seem like they more advanced? They can't get it because everybody, including our people, have based their entire structure on material value. There's nothing about anything that matters that cannot be paid for, charged for, or written off. So UCC is more prudent than nationality because that seems like you could get money quicker. But the only people making money off of UCCs is the United States government. They said that they made over $14.9 million off of that. So that means all of these dudes that's pumping UCCs, in their own private names and not in the name of some temple or something like that, they working for the government because they're getting them paid. They getting the money. And they're getting money off of the people that they're convincing to do that.
Wow.
So I'm not talking about when it first came out. When it first came out, when we understood in 2001, it was something totally different. With this shit that these dudes are doing now, in 2001, this is right after 9/11. So this is now about declaration of nationality through this channel that was created. So the few people we was able to get filed like that was cool. But then after that, we had to step away from even some of the people we was dealing with at that time because they got so obsessed with trying to crack it that 2 of them actually have gone insane, literally insane.
Wow. And it will do that. A lot of things will drive you batty out here, nuts.
Half of these dudes that they watching on these DVDs and stuff like that, half of these dudes have been committed already. Real talk. But they wouldn't know because they use enough words and stuff where people wouldn't even realize. But all you got to do is get on Ben Verified. You see it all. Go on BenVerified.com, type in niggas' real names. That's why they don't tell you their real names.
And a lot of them look off. Like if your third eye is open, you can see through all that shit. And you can just the things they say sound crazy. You know, it just don't make sense.
I tell people like this: if this person was somebody that you would not invite your house under any other circumstance other than kicking knowledge, then you shouldn't be talking to that person.
Exactly.
And you should only invest as much as you can glean necessary for you. Once you go beyond that point, you're now under their jurisdiction, and whatever happened to you is on you. You know.
Wow.
But thank you again for calling, Queen, and we really appreciate the support. Selena says love and light too.
Of course, I definitely. You know I love y'all. Love you, love you, love you, love you, and peace.
Indeed, love and light. It's a real talk, man. So, like we were saying, as we wind down, Syria was brought forth actually through a French mandate. So the connection between the invasions of Libya and Syria are connected because in both operations, the so-called French are parties to the so-called conspiracy. So this next round of destabilization kind of started around the time when you saw your homegirl do the nod to the timing of the Miley Cyrus twerking incident and the invasion of Syria. You'll be surprised. Well, everybody was talking about that. They had already been bombing shit because you caught up in that. So that shows you that there is a tendency for them to use these objects. I won't even call them humans because a lot of them are not. And really, unless you see them personally in real life and you know them, you don't even know if these people exist. You don't. So you mean to tell me Beyonce can be called Bae, but if I try to put Bae at the end of my name, you got a problem with that? You see how hypocritical it is? You mean to tell me that if amor is bringing love, and love means amor, that mores are not love. And love is the first principle in our creed, which is love, true, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. So amor, or moreno, or moro, or morano, right? It all happens to be in all these different languages. It all start with the same word. And these wasn't all the same people unified behind the same thing based upon where they were at the time. Yes. So, this was under the sink. So, it's become a wash. The whole thing is a blowback psyop that's already reached critical mass. And they're going to try to use this to bring them in. If they go to war, they're going to try to impeach this dude. And that's going to be the backdoor setup for them to do whatever false flag they're going to try to flip in lieu of this tragedy. So, again, these Islamic fundamentalists, these people have literally turned into cannibals now. They're actually devouring people's livers and stuff on film. So that's just one form of film. Imagine what the film that the government and these people got on stuff they've been doing. The plan for New American Century, after Syria falls, then the first incursion with Israel happens between Iran and Israel through the Sudan. That's why the Sudan has been broken up between the North and the South with the help of George Clooney and the Janjaweed cannibalistic horsemen of the wild straits of the desert, who were imported as death squads on behalf of a company called OPM. The interesting thing about OPM is that its associate company also have OPM is the check agency where all of these government agencies get their checks from. So they don't even get their checks from the United States government. Somebody else paying these people. Don't believe me? Check it out. It wouldn't be secret if I could find it on the internet. You know what I'm saying? That's why I be saying, like, people, it's like, are people not reading this shit? Like, where is it? I'm picking up on this. Like, everybody get their check from OPM. OPM under IMF. So that tell you right there, both of them under UN. So the UN paying for everybody. So that's cool. Just tell the American people that the UN runs America now. Just tell them that. Like, on some real shit, I feel like if they just tell people, look, we done signed all this shit over to the UN, so we don't want to give these more back their money. And those people who are in their own nation or whatever, they could do that. Those people who don't like it, they could leave. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's real talk. To me, people will respect the United States again. They'd be like, oh, look, these niggas finally keeping it real. We hate on these niggas. Let them do their thing. That's real talk. And the guy they call the president seemed like he that type of dude. He could make something like that happen. But he letting them get them caught up with this war shit. And because he ain't never do nothing to help no black people since he been in there, he spiritually is done. That's why he's starting to look old and torn up. because Michelle probably be in that ass every week talking about how he let these white people just walk all over him. You know what I'm saying? But, hey, he signed up for that. So I don't have no sympathy for nobody in that because they don't have sympathy for me or you. They don't have no sympathy when they be running up in people's houses trying to kill them and all of that, treating them like Negroes and all of that. These white people, these people who sign up and become police and all that, a lot of these dudes, except for some of the officers I've been meeting recently, it's been interesting. Some of them have been really about, like, really trying to get right. So respect to them. But outside of that, people in their fraternity, when you sign up to get a gun and shoot people. Like, that's part of your job. You do realize that they may put you in a position where, even though we say that we don't follow quotas, if you don't produce certain at a certain time, you don't get into this facet of the police. You got to do it. It's tremendous pressure. I couldn't imagine being in a situation like that. Having to constantly be the one arresting people that look like me and then having to joke about it with people who are constantly bringing up how their ancestors own me and how much of a traitor I am for working with them to enslave my own people. And how I got to let them make racist jokes and shit like that and all of that every day. That drives you crazy. So there has to be a system for those type of people to get rehabilitation, to get out, the same way they're supposed to have rehabilitation for the prisoners who get let out of jail. They don't do that because in the business is based upon how broke you are. So the more broke the psyche, the more the criminal and the civil system has a right to function. So in the case of the Syria situation, that transliterates into America now from those countries who agreed to basically start to buy and purchase gold backed by oil, money backed by oil. That cuts the United States out because the United States used to make it that you had to buy dollars to get the oil. The Saudis flipped that on them. The only reason why they're still here is because we ain't wake up. And because a lot of the Saudis have now become decadent, they're now in a situation where they need somebody to bail them out spiritually, karmically. The only people who could do that is us. Is we the only people by law connected to the Sultanate of the Hejaz and the Najd. So anybody want to find out more about that and how to do things correctly and how to hook up with proper temples and temples that are actually within the jurisdictional system, not jurisdictional like telling you what to do or how to be, but how to eat to live, that type of thing, email us at houseofl@hotmail.com. Also, for any consultations on this topic or any readings, book signings, lectures, workshops, whatever, email us at houseofl@hotmail.com. Any donations you can send to dukeoftears@gmail.com. Anybody want to check out real health positive understanding, check out cookingmorewithless.com, www.cookingmorewithless.com. Also, anybody want to check out any of the works we've done, please go to www.aseer.com. The world's most dangerous comic book novel, The Dark Skull 418. You can order ebook as well as hardcover from www.darkskull418.com. Lastly, check out www.sagaassad.com and superheruradio.com. So that way we can be informed with some of the things we got coming up, some great things, inshallah. And thank you guys again for the support all of these years and for acknowledging what we have been contributing for as long as we have been into the movement for you and yours and ours to get to a better place. So, again, love and light to you, and inshallah, we'll speak to you again. Peace.